everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation. And my guests today are Trina Schmidt, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly now, and Louise Hard Hanley, which I didn't ask, but hopefully I pronounced that correctly as well. So they are both founders of the transformational life class for women called Time and Tuesdays. So Trina is an entrepreneur, licensed therapist, life coach, and certified theta healing practitioner. Louisa is an intuitive coach and mentor, and also a certified theta healing practitioner. So both of them share that. So this is my brief introduction to both of you. But the question that I love asking everybody, each one of my guests, is who are you in your own words? How would you describe that in this very moment?
I'm a wife. I'm a mother of three girls. I was born and raised in Denmark. Have now been in US for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And I grew up very intuitive, having a deep knowledge of the world, but being raised with parents who didn't love themselves and a lot of suffering in the world and going through tribulations. It was really confusing to me because I kind of lost touch with myself. I didn't know quite how to handle it. So all that hurt and suffering was confusing to my inner being. When I went to the US, I really missed home. I got into a hard relationship. Was married for 12 years, since got divorced. And through all that, I was really missing home. And what I recognized was not really missing home as in Denmark, right? As in my parents. That's what I thought, because I was always looking for that external validation and alignment. But after a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-discovery, I recognized that, this home that I was looking for was really understanding myself, understanding my human experience, understanding my spiritual self, and eventually found home. So I was born to help people and didn't know quite how to do that as a little girl. I made myself very small. I was very fearful until I really stepped into my true self as a therapist and a coach. And now having this amazing partnership with Louisa about Time and Tuesdays has just really been an incredible journey.
Yes. Wow. How amazing. Yes, Louisa.
Yeah, well, I have, as Trine, just been intuitive all my life. I've been aware of my intuitive abilities from a very young age. I could have always sensed other people's emotions, thoughts, what was going on inside of them. I was a strange kid, said strange things my parents couldn't handle. So I had to conceal that intuition for decades. My upbringing was filled with sarcasm, manipulation, abuse, being responsible for my mom's emotions and all of her well-being. And that led me down unhealthy path with unhealthy relationships, really rebellious behavior. And I was filled with blame, anger, and not really aware of what was important in my life because I was so angry. So, but all of that came to a place where I had to do something different.
Right.
So as Trine, I was married in an unhealthy relationship. So I got divorced.
Yeah.
And that changed my life because I always knew I would like something different.
Yes. Wow, listening to you, both of you, it's like listening to my own story. Isn't it amazing how we share that? So I would love for you to answer that question. Either of you, how is that something that you have reflected on? Is that suffering something that's needed, or it's just part of the human experience and we have chosen to be here for a reason as well. That's actually going deeper into spirituality and what is really to be a human. So talk to me about that, about suffering, if it is something that's necessary to learn or something that we can actually learn without the pain.
Well, I think suffering is part of the human experience. I believe that we choose to live this lifetime for a reason. And when we are humans, we have emotions and thoughts that are going to trip us up.
Yeah.
And from that, grow this higher awareness and higher knowledge. Louisa and I's passions are really to teach people this language, the foundation of what it's like to be a human, because we tend to identify with the suffering, right? Or something
Yes.
must be wrong in my life, right? And or I chose the wrong person to be with. But at the end of the day, everything that we choose is for us to expand and for us to grow. And without knowing what suffering looks like, we cannot free ourselves and really feel the expansive bliss and fulfillment and joy, and choosing to focus on that instead of focusing on what's hurting in our lives, because there's always something, right? We choose to shift our focus on something that feels more with gratitude, right?
Yes. Wow, what a beautiful answer. Yes, I resonate with that, Trina. What about you, Louise? What are your thoughts about suffering and lessons?
Well, I have always learned through contrast. And there are some spiritual laws about contrast. If there is hot, there is cold. If there is wet, there is dry. And if there is negative, there is positive. So, and I have learned a lot of lessons through my kids. I have 4 girls.
Yeah. Wow.
And they have learned a lot about self-image, how to have a good and beautiful self-image. And I started to reflect why I didn't have it, because if I saw myself through their eyes, they saw a beautiful mom. And that was, I think that is such an important lesson, because the self-image is so important. We are all making ourselves suffering. We're beating ourselves up, or talk ourselves down. We're doing ourselves small. And it's, I think it's a very important lesson to try to flip it, so we stay positive. And that's why we created Time in Tuesdays.
Yes, yeah, that's my understanding when I went to the website and read the information. So we have that time to reflect, to be more in contact with our intuition and not with the mind. Talk to me about Time in Tuesdays. How did this come into life? How did you both meet? Actually, I know you're from the same country, but how did you finally meet? And what is the main purpose, which you already kind of hint there, Louise, about the main purpose and intention of Time in Tuesdays? But talk to me a bit more about it.
Yeah, so Louisa and I met Louisa through one of her theta healing programs, and we resonated right away with the same passion and life philosophy of wanting this knowledge to just be out there. There's just not enough talk about it. We don't learn this way of self-awareness and understanding how our mind and our and body and emotions, they go together, and how they trip us up. We don't learn that in schools. We don't learn it from our parents, quite contrary at times, right? So there's no place where people can learn and take this time into themselves. And the reason we came up with the time ins is really from time outs. A lot of times, we send our children in timeout, and I started using timeout as an adult timeout, because I learned that, a lot of times it's not our children that are misbehaving in that sense, right? It's sometimes the way that we respond to them and react to them. So putting ourselves kind of in a timeout, or removing ourselves from a situation to get ourselves back in alignment, to feel better about ourselves, to kind of flip things to a different perspective, and then come back and re-engage to the situation, is really the essence of timeouts. But time out also is associated with isolation and rejection, and you go in the corner, and what kind of reflection is there? How much guidance is in that?
Right.
So it really is a choice to time into yourself. So this is a weekly time in that we do in Time In Tuesdays, 45 minutes for us to really be just with our own alignment, to celebrate our success, to celebrate the growth that we have, to focus on the glass half full instead of half empty,
Yeah.
and building on those skills of life to really see that we live amazing lives regardless of what happens around us.
And creating a community where you're not alone. I have felt, and I know that Trine has as well, felt very alone in our growth and our expansion.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yes, right. Feeling alone, right? That's an interesting concept, right, from the mind, because a lot of times I know we are never alone. That's something that I know now that I didn't know before. So I was always trying to be in the presence of others or doing something, because I had no idea that I had already within me what I needed to access in order to be happy and peaceful. So the question that I wanted to ask before that was about the mind and intuition. How do we learn to distinguish when we are coming from the mind, when we are listening to thoughts and ideas, coming from mind and then coming from intuition? How do we learn the difference?
Well, for me, my experience is that I had to just like get out of my head
Yeah.
and go down in my stomach, in my body, and feel how. And I began with the little things. What kind of food would I like? Does it feel right to eat salad? Would I like a steak? And should I go to the bathroom or should I wait? Small steps, small things, but it's important to get out of your head and into your body, and because the body knows the answers, and that little twitch in your gut is your intuition.
Right.
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because
Yeah.
Louise and I have talked so much about this, and the nuance between our mind and our intuition is so blurry at times. It's really confusing of knowing, what is really my core being speaking, and what is the outside influence. And when I learned that, our ego is so loud, that, oh, you should and you ought to, and ego is the first voice that a lot of times we hear, where our inner being, our intuition is very soft. It's very subtle. So first of all, we have to be really still and really quiet. We have to take a time in to ourselves to really understand what's happening inside of me right now, so I can feel, so I can actually hear the softness, right, of our intuition instead of the immediate loud ego. So that quiet place, and also the real knowing, we know when it's right. We don't really question it. Well, ego will question it, right? Should I really? That's not very logical. That's pretty irrational, right? So it's that subtlety. And the more we are able to dig deeper into our inner knowledge through meditation, through stillness, through a walk in nature, the more aligned we are, the more we will be in touch with that intuitive part of us.
Yes. Do you want to add something, Louise, to that?
Yeah, it's Trine mentioned ego, and it's the ego can be very loud, and sometimes we try to park it, or we don't want to hear it, and we try just to forget about it. But the more you do that, the louder the ego becomes. So if you're, I have had a lot of talks with my own ego, because it's only trying to protect us. So I have talked to my ego about, well, I can hear you, I'm listening to you, but I choose something else. And when you're just like nurturing your ego, it becomes smaller and smaller. And sometimes when you have practiced this, it will become still, and then it's easier to feel your intuition or to hear your intuition.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense to me. I talked to somebody recently who said the ego is like a baby. I thought it was beautiful the way she said, because it was very empathetic in the sense of not trying to kind of remove, escape from, push away the ego, seeing as something that's negative. So I love the way she said that. It makes sense to me, Louise. Yeah, it's not pushing away, but also not letting it drive our lives. Intuition gives me this the big picture of whatever it is that the body mind is looking to experience or see. So it's the big picture always. It never gives me like step by step, although I cannot. It gives me step by step, but it's not really at once. So it's little by little. It's very playful in a way. I see that too, being very playful in that sense. So it's not revealed at once. So in all that sounds really, like I said, playful to me. Is that something that you talk about on Time In Tuesdays, about how playfulness and being light is actually a quality of intuition and also the way we should be living more?
Well, playfulness exists in creativity, and we can only be creative when we're fully aligned. So
Yes.
when we're in our intuition, when we're in alignment, this is where we can create. This is where we come up with crazy new concepts that just dumps down from the sky, right?
Yes.
So we use a lot of playfulness in Time and Tuesdays. We have a new topic each week that we don't reveal to them until the day of, because it's really exciting.
Yes.
But it's all related to things like we're talking about today that we just experience on a regular basis. We may talk about the ego. We may talk about intuition. We may talk about shame or letting go. And all of that is tied together. But we have to have a lightness about it. Because if we get into the grip of the emotions and the grip of, oh, this is so tough and this is really hard. And this is kind of where I steered away from therapy for a little bit, because it became very theoretical and we got to dive into our emotions, but our emotions can really grip us and then we can't play as much. Right. So a lot of times we have to take our emotions by hand, like the baby, the ego, and say, okay, you come with me. And we're going to do it anyway. I'm going to take fear in my hand and I'm going to step into gratitude anyway. I'm still going to practice focusing on gratitude. And then celebration. I think we had a week where we did just celebrating anything, life, showing up today, showing up for yourself, showing up for your meditation this morning. And let's just celebrate and let's look silly with the toot horn. I don't know what it's called in English.
Yes.
And and a hat and some streamers and stuff like that. Like, why not celebrate today? Why do we have to wait until we get the big promotion or something like that? So playfulness is important, and playfulness only exists in that alignment where we're not afraid of, oh my gosh, what am I going to look like, or how are people going to view me? Right.
Oh my God. Yes, a billion times to that truth. Yeah, fear and playfulness, they cannot coexist. I don't think so. Right. Interesting thing about light, the word light. Some people say, oh, lighten up. Light, I associate that to light, spiritual light, awakening. A lot of people talk about light in the sense of divine energy. So that's how I see it. Playfulness, there's something that just true about it, you're being light, you're really being your essence now, you're expressing where you're coming from, you never left, we're always there, but we just forget, right, to be in touch with. So I'm dying to ask you a question about freedom, but that'll be at the end because this platform is called the Freedom to Feel. So I want to ask you, you just mentioned something about freedom, I wrote it down here, but before that, talk to me about Theta healing. I heard about it, but I don't remember understanding the meaning of that and how it works. So talk to me about that for a moment.
Well, theta healing is using a deep form meditation and intuition to observe healings in others. So we're a vehicle for healing the clients that we see. And therefore we're using the highest power really to observe and facilitate in a way these the healing of the mind, body, spirit. The cool thing, and really what attracted me to theta healing, is the notion of going in and changing limiting beliefs, removing limiting beliefs. These are really things that are stuck in our bodies, in our DNA, from whatever our ancestors came with, and clear it out on such a deeper level. You know, for my clients, I call it therapy on steroids, because you're able to access some back doors that you can't just get to when you're just in your conscious mind. So it's a really great tool to delve much deeper and accelerate expansion and growth and healing.
And it's the fastest method that I have ever come across in over 25 years of self-development. Theta healing is the fastest and most efficient way to change limiting beliefs, because a limiting beliefs is also just energy. And energy can be changed very quickly.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. Wow, it's so true. Right. Gosh, that's a very insightful comment. Yes, right. Energy can be changed at any moment. I have to ask the question about freedom now. I wanted to wait. So one of my, let's say, calling, I have to say calling, use that word, is to be free. I have been traumatized in childhood. Physical, emotional, mental abuse was just really, really bad. So by the age of 37, I was still living the symptoms of that. I was still living through traumatic responses. That was the life I had. So talk to me for a moment about that. What is freedom to you? How do you access freedom? How do you teach? Let's say if it can be taught, how do you pass that on? I mean, what you just said, Loise, just kind of it made me to be in touch with that essence again, just right away. Like, the energy is already here. So what else do I need? But talk to me about freedom from your perspective.
Freedom can be very different from person to person. Freedom for me is to be able to be who I am whenever. If I have a bad day, I can, people around me, I can tell them that I have a bad day, and that's okay. That's a sense of freedom, because I can just be. Freedom can, so freedom can be very different from person to person. But how to learn to be free, we have to define for ourselves what freedom is to ourselves. So, and sometimes you need to dig, because you know what the opposite of freedom, like entrapment, what that feels like. So it's to look at that, then you can say, well, the exact opposite is the freedom. So how do I get there? And that is where I think that Time and Tuesdays are amazing, because we learn people to become aware of awareness. I wasn't aware of awareness, so that's the first step to become, or to have the feeling of freedom.
Yeah, so I love that, being aware of awareness. Yes. Easy said than done for most of us. That's why we need practice.
And we have to practice every single day, and we have to remember to practice.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There's a reminder of practicing too. That's true. Trina, talk to me about freedom.
And a lot of times, freedom is, as Loise says, it's freedom from what? And as humans, it's many times free from the suffering, freedoms from the hold that are, also past life, but maybe past trauma, childhood trauma, a tough relationship, things that keep popping up that holds us back, that trip us up, right? We got to get out of our own way to achieve freedom. Freedom is a concept in our mind that really means, for me, true alignment. When I'm in meditation and when I'm really just focused in the moment, there's true freedom, because I can go anywhere. I can go anywhere in my mind, and I can go anywhere energetically. So you're talking about shifting energies and vibrations as well. Yeah. There is freedom when you let go and you remove programs through theta healing, or even through Time and Tuesdays. When we marinate in the same knowledge and wisdom with that many people together, it raises the vibration. And there's a sense of freedom in that because we come closer to who we are. We reflect ourselves in other people that exhibit the same high vibration. And now we recognize that within ourselves. Right? So why is it that we find freedom in nature and find freedom with animals or with role models in the world? That's because what we see is beauty, and it reflects back on what we already know about ourselves. So that profound knowledge, we want to be more in that. So being around it more obviously will provide more freedom. But it's really the concept within. What do I choose to focus on today? Because there's freedom in everything we do, even our agenda, even in our planning, just the freedom of choosing. We always have the freedom in our mind. Like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is just blew my mind open, right? That under so much confinement physically, right? Or trauma in the past, you can still go to a place of true freedom. And what's better than gratitude and bliss and joy, or a silly dance? Sometimes Louise and I do silly dance together because it just frees some energy, and it just raises the energy a little bit and become lighter, right? As you mentioned before. So that's really freedom for me, and the choice of defining it, like Louisa says, there's so much power in that, because now you're creating the reality you want. Freedom is going for a walk. Freedom is when I just shift into more light thoughts, right? That's yummy.
Yes. Feels like music, right? Light thoughts. Yes. The interesting thing about this, the concept of freedom, it's that for me, by having access to that, it kind of made it easier to navigate the body-mind complexities, all the traumas that is still stored here. I can see them. I can just be with them. And there's more room. It feels like a lot more spacious than it used to feel. But of course, it's still a moment to moment, kind of being aware of that. And sometimes, that sense of freedom completely vanishes. And that's why I do this too. This podcast, I write the books I do, and I'm always in touch with people who are doing the same. They are looking for freedom from that perspective, especially like the essence, what's the ground reality that holds all this together. With that in mind, talk to me about consciousness. You talk about the path to higher consciousness. So is this what we are speaking of, really? Just using different words, freedom, higher consciousness, are they one and the same or somehow different?
Yeah, they're very similar. Higher consciousness really is thoughts free of ego. It's a higher vibration. It's recognizing that we are not our thoughts, that we are not our emotions. So there's this higher purpose. And for a lot of people, and especially the members that we see in Time and Tuesdays, it can be very lonely. So if you have this, midlife awakening, or, mine started kind of, maybe early 20s, where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And why am I keep going this direction? I felt such a victim of circumstance. I became very needy and fearful. Yeah. And I didn't want that. I knew exactly kind of where I was going in life and what I wanted. I just was afraid of focusing on it. This wisdom that I had inside of me, I couldn't focus on it. So when you get to a higher consciousness, just really means that you're aware of awareness, really, right? That you're kind of awake, that you see yourself, your presence, your essence as separate from your body. You exist within the restrictions of your body, and I guess the restrictions of the world around you, but you are now experiencing life from a higher view. And a lot of people, especially the women that we have in our group, find ourselves lonely in that. Louise and I are very lonely in that. You feel wrong, you feel off. The way you talk about life, people are like, yeah, but there's still the laundry and it really sucks, and life is really a bummer, right? And we exist in a different space. So when you see all that suffering reflected around you, it's kind of hard to keep that vibration at times, and it's kind of hard to not kind of go down and be dragged down into that energy, because we see it but I also see it as a springboard to compassion. We can develop this sense of compassion for that we're going through life with all of this experience, all of this together at different levels,
right.
you know, and when, as Louisa says, when you know better, you do better.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is again, higher consciousness. Yeah.
And also what I think is important is responsibility. You always have responsibility of your choices in life. And with awareness, when you become more aware, responsibility follows.
Yes, so true. You know, I heard something interesting from somebody recently. I think it was a book that my husband was reading. He said, from two psychologists, they said, we mature when we become responsible for what we're not responsible for. So that kind of resonated with me when it comes to trauma. So I was not responsible to the trauma that the body mind experienced, but I am responsible to be aware of it and do something to free myself from the trauma response. So going back, there was a quote that I have so many notes here. There's a quote from Loise that caught my attention. I think this was on your website. You say, when everything seems to be falling apart, it is actually falling in place. You see, that resonates with the universal kind of wisdom
Yeah.
that we, from a personal perspective, believe that everything's falling apart, and we just sometimes get trapped in those ideas. But in reality, it's falling in place. I mean, this is just so beautiful. I would love for you to comment on that, Louise. What inspired you to write to come to this conclusion?
It's because when life is tough or throwing us some curveballs, and it's I needed. I've been through a lot of periods of where life has been beating me up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I was missing something to hold on to. And that's how I did a meditation, and this quote came to me. And it gives hope. It gives you a lot of things on different levels. Also, a lot of trust. Okay, I have to trust the universe. I have to trust that everything falls into place. I'm not able to see the result or where I'm going, but I have faith and I have trust. So it's just like I say to every client that are going through tough times, because it gives hopes and it gives light and it gives you believe, and I think that to give people hope,
yes,
is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity to learn, right? There's an opportunity in every moment. So when life springs stuff in us, you know, we have an opportunity to expand. You know, during my first part of life, I became smaller. I contracted because it was scary, and I didn't know. My family and people around me didn't show me how to step outside of my comfort zone in a way where I could really expand and play with my own creativity. So this notion of when things are falling apart really is ego saying, oh my gosh, I am in a place that's so unfamiliar right now that I don't know what direction to go in. And do we ever voluntarily step into this black hole or this step over a cliff, and the universe is saying, just take the step, you know, we will catch you. And you're like, well, heck no, I'm not going to do that. So that's where everything is falling apart. But if you know that every time you take that step outside of your comfort zone, even at the most utmost outside line of your comfort zone, really a place you've never been before, you've never seen anybody step outside into that place. So when it's so unfamiliar, it's fearful.
Yeah.
And when we take that step, it feels like everything is just falling out of place, but it really is the next step in your evolution. It's the next step in your growth and expansion. So I think it really helps soothe our mind to this reassurance that we are caught, we are protected, we are guided, right?
Yeah.
And when we're fearful, we just take the fear by the hand and say, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yes, a billion times we are guided. We are guided for sure. Yes, that's something that now I can say with with all my being, yes, I'm being guided. And so all of us, right? We're all being guided here. You said something too, Trina, that caught my attention. One of your quotes as well said, "My mission in life is to change the world." So that's how many people say that? I mean, I said that, of course, many times. But isn't it by changing ourselves that we change the world? It's exactly what you're doing. You are inspiring us to do, to fulfill that mission of changing the world. We change ourselves first. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I knew this very early on, the people that I touched in my life. And he has even come back from my childhood and say, you were such a presence for me, which I didn't know that I had that ability very early on. I think I had the ability to see people for who they are and not just, bad behavior, which also landed me in, some trouble myself later on.
Yeah.
But having this ability of really seeing people and really connecting deeply with people is what's going to change. The more that we are in alignment with ourselves, and the more that we can hold space for other people, for them to find a peace or see this essence of being in alignment, even if they're not aware of it, just for a moment, that creates a shift. So this shift is not just energetically from connecting deeply, seeing people, being with people, right? Being worthy of love, receiving and giving. But it's also this notion of learning the language of why we're humans, and not getting tripped up in thoughts and emotions. I think that's the biggest lesson for me, at least at this aha moment, that, oh my gosh, I do have a choice in how I want to feel in this moment. If I can just lighten my thoughts a bit, I shift that whole perspective, and that shifts your energy too. And guess what? Now other people are going to step into your lives, and all of a sudden you invite really amazing experiences right in front of you. And you can call that, lucky or random. But we're guided to that. I believe that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's how we change the world. We change the world by speaking our own truth, having the conversations that other people don't want to have, that they avoid, that they're uncomfortable with, that their ego is squirming in, and speaking it and creating a language that is empowering, that is inspiring, that is motivating. The women that come into the Time and Tuesdays for us, they go out into their world and they speak from a different place. They speak from empowerment and less lack. And if they can do that, then we start that ripple effect. And I think that is that core screaming inside of me is saying, let's do this together. I'm on the journey myself. Louise is on the journey. We're just the ones that want to teach and step into it and be with people doing this. And now with you.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's truly beautiful. Thank you so much for being you, for being guided, for listening to the guidance of the universe, of life itself, and to do what you do. Question that came to mind, we're almost at the end, but I have too many questions here, is why women? Why just women? Why just helping women?
Well, it's for me, it's because they're relatable. As a woman myself, having done all these steps, and I'm on my own journey, and Trine is on her journey. We were just we have talked about it back and forth, but to learn women to time in not only on Tuesdays but every single day, and
Yes.
several times a day, they have a tendency to learn their children. And for me, I don't see so many men doing that. So to the women are great teachers and teach their kids. Are we going to make in the future a program for men? Maybe. We never know. Maybe the universe will tell us to do so. But right now, we're beginning with the women.
Yes.
And there is this, in our society, there is a difference of men and women and what we go through. And I think it's important in the beginning for us to really create this space for women that go through a lot of these things. We have a lot of mothers as well on Time and Tuesdays, and there's a different vibe in that. So absolutely, I can see yourself embrace all of it. It's not necessarily discriminating against the men, but it is really creating this female power. I think a lot of us women have been disempowered in so many ways. So this is not an against the men, right? This is more of a, we're going to create this power, and hopefully we're going to influence the men in our lives in that sense. So it goes in a lot of ways. Yeah.
So we're almost at the end. Gosh, I want to mention. So the Time In Tuesdays are real-time interactive classes. So you connect live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time online with Trina and Loise. And also, as you said, other like-hearted and like-hearted women. I have to add this in here, the heart. And then also I want to mention that it's on your website. I have the information here. Weekly classes schedule. So you review homework awareness of last week's topic. You do weekly topic review. You do mindfulness and healing, and then open Q&A and reflections. Did I miss anything?
No, everybody, for people signing up, now they can get the first month for only $7. They can use the promo code Fit for Joy, and they will get the first month for just $7. And then it's a monthly thing. As soon as you become a member, you also have access to all previous recordings, and there's a lot of resources as a member that you can access, like meditations and certain exercises that we go into more depth with. One of the things that our members really say is so valuable and that we have really listened to is this kind of hands-on guidance, like figuring out how to get these puzzle pieces to fit together. Is something that has worked really well for us in our lives, but we see this thirst and hunger, especially for women, to make sense, right? To find themselves, to make sense of their lives. I know there's more. How do I get to that? And that's really what happens in these Time and Tuesdays classes. So kind of a lot of hands-on, a lot of exercises, a lot of diving into stuff. Again, all that class stuff, that life class stuff that we don't learn in college or growing up, and where else are we going to learn it? So every week you get to go in, and people are so excited to join every week. They're like so excited about the topic, and it's just such a blessing for us.
Yeah, it's a gift. It's definitely a gift. Thank you so much. Loise, do you want to add?
Well, the only thing I want to say is when you know better, you do better. So start learning.
Yeah, so true. Be open to that, right? Yeah,
be open. Yeah.
So important. That's the key to me. Yes. So I also want to mention, so Trina, you mentioned the code Fit for Joy promo code.
Yes.
Is there a specific link? I don't have that link.
So it's timeandtuesdays.com, and they can sign up there. If they do the monthly membership, they use the code Fit for Joy, and they will get their first month discounted. Yeah.
So it's simple, very simple, timeandtuesdays.com. I'll have the link on the podcast profile.
Great.
So before we say goodbye for today, I do have the ending question that I usually ask everyone, well, sometimes not everybody, but I try to. From both of you, I would love to hear the answer. What 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
The feeling of freedom. Self-love, a beautiful self-image, and reaching the goals they want to reach.
Yeah, it's hard to not piggybacking off of some of Loise's. For me, it's really true connection. I was seeking true connection with others, but I found out that true connection really stems from the depth that you feel yourself. The deeper you feel with yourself, the deeper you're going to have intimacy with others. And then, getting outside of your comfort zone, allowing yourself to not listen to ego and just go for it. There is so much fun, and there's so much amazement on the other side of that comfort zone. Yeah, I think that's what I can come up with.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much again for sharing timeless wisdom to me, and coming from the heart, from that place of knowing, allowing yourselves to be guided to do what you're doing today. That's what we need to see more in this reality, our share reality. That will really make a huge difference. So thank you so much again for being you and for sharing this time together. Thank you.
Thank you for
Louise
having
and
us.
Thank
Trina.
you for
Thank
having
you.
us. Thank you.
So we'll be in touch again. Bye for now.